Monish Deepak Shah ji, who is going to present his paper on Sopara, an ancient port trade center and a Teertha.
Good evening, everyone. After such a beautiful presentation by Pratik, I hope I can do justice because he has talked about a living yatra and I'm going to talk about yatra of a place. So I'm Monish. My co-authors could not make it and I'm the only one presenting. But before starting, I would just like to thank the organizers for giving us the opportunity to present our paper here. So Sopara, now for those who are from Mumbai, would know that Sopara is probably the most looked down upon place in Mumbai, and it is a suburb of Mumbai which falls under the Palghar district today, but it has an ancient past. So geographically the details are written, but I'll just skim through it. It has been a magnificent port, a trade center, and a Teertha Kshetra for all the major Indian religions. It has attracted people all across, all through history, and it attracts scholars today. So the methodology that we had is for the Teertha Kshetra, we went through the literary sources for all the three major religions. We went through the travel accounts, the inscriptional data, and other literary sources. We went through the archaeological data of the excavations that have been done earlier. We have conducted some explorations, some surface explorations. We have gone through maps and works of other scholars. We have done village to village surveys of the places which are mentioned in other works, and we have also talked to the local people of what their idea of Sopara is. So I'll just quickly go through the Brahmanical and the Buddhist work because that has been extensively done by other scholars. So the Mahabharata mentions Arjuna had visited Holy Shurparaka, and then from there he went to Dwarka via the sea route. It is believed that Parshuram, the sixth avatar of Vishnu, created Sopara, and he, created Sopara with ample natural supply, so the people don't have to worry about their subsistence. He also shielded it with his axe. That is why it is also called as Parshuram Tirth. There are other references in various Puranas and Mahatmyas like Nirmal Mahatmya or Triambakeshwar Mahatmya, which describes the Vrata and the Tapa at Sopara, which leads to Pap Vimochan. According to a legend, the 17th, 18th century legend associated with the Peshwa period Kund at Agashi, which is still there, an ill Shreshtin from Sangli commissioned a Kund at Agashi, stayed there for a few days, dipped in it, and his illness was cured. As we have heard in the afternoon that some link between illness and yatra during the wellness session. So this would be some link. The Adi Shankaracharya temple at Nirmal is believed to be the Samadhi of Shankaracharya, though it is a bit controversial, but then it is the 17th, 18th century Shankaracharya from Dwarka. Now we go to the Buddhist references. So Buddhists also regard Sopara as one of their most important tirthas. So Buddha is believed to have visited Sopara during his lifetime. Buddhist tradition also mentions that in one of his previous births, Buddha was born as Bodhisattva Supparaka. Now Purnavdan mentions that Purna has visited Shravasti and invited Buddha to come to Sopara. Buddha visited there and converted a Brahmanical sage and 500 widows to Buddhism. Now this association with Buddha shows that the importance that Buddhists had for Sopara or Supparaka or Surparaka, as it was known. The Sri Lankan text of Mahavamsa mentions that Ashoka sent one of his missionaries, Dhammarakshita, who was a Yavana meaning a Greek or a Bactrian, to Sopara to propagate Buddhism in Apranta, that is modern day Konkan. Now, it is believed that Dhamma Rakshita made Sopara as his base and spread Buddhism across Western India from there. The same text also mentioned that the first Sialis king of Sri Lanka, Vijay, sailed from Soparaka. Now we move towards the Jain references. So Jains also regard Sopara as one of their most important tirthas. Paumacharyam, which is the Jain version of Ramayana, mentions Sopara as one of the places conquered by Love and Kush, amongst other places. The mythical king Shripal had married Sopara's king Mahasena's daughter Tilaka Sundari. Sopara is regarded by the Jains as one of the oldest taleti of Shatrunjay. Now, Shatrunjay is, most of the people can associate Shatrunjay with Palitana. So, the Tirth at Palitana, modern day Palitana, is basically the Shatrunjay hill. So, according to the Jains, Adinath's eldest son Bharat Chakravarti created the foothill, that is a taleti at Sopara. It gradually changed, and there is a myth associated with it. Gradually shifted place, and today it is at Palitana. And I mean, there is some link to it that the Jains believe. Ashoka's grandson Samprati, who was a ardent follower of Jainism, gave patronage to the monks and also facilitated for safe travel of sadhus. It is believed that the 4 kulas, out of which the 84 gachas of Shvetambar Murtipujak Jains that came into being, was also formed at Sopara in the 1st century of the Common Era by Acharya Vajrasen Suri. Acharya Yakshadev Suri is believed to have conducted Agam Vachana in the 1st century because there was a 12-year famine according to the text, and the idea of Agama was getting lost. So he had conducted an Agam Vachana, and according to the estimation, more than 1,000 sadhus and sadhvis had taken part in the Agam Vachana. It also mentions that when the Vachana was conducted, a lot of traders were already settled in Sopara. Now, Acharya Chinprabha Suri mentioned that Sopara was one of the 84 most important tirthas for the Jains, and a Jivit Swami Murti of Adinath was being worshipped. So, Jivit Swami Murti, according to the Jaina tradition, is a Murti which was being made when the Tirthankar was still alive. Apart from these various historical figures, as we'll see ahead, have association with Sopara. Now we'll look at the cave inscriptions. These are most of the people are aware of it. I'll just pass through it. Sopara is mentioned in a lot of inscriptions in Western India. Like we have in Karle a donation being made by Satimita along with his uncle's relics. Baddana Dhammutarya, which indicates that he belonged to the Dhammutarya sect. Ushavdat's inscription from Nashik caves records donation made by him for guest house being constructed for the Brahmanas. Naneghat and Kaneri inscriptions also record donors from Sopara. Traveler accounts. Now, what is a yatra without a traveler? So, Sopara has been luring foreign travelers from all across the world. We are aware of the periplus of the Erythraean Sea, giving detailed accounts of the seasons and the geographical contours of Sopara. Also, Ptolemy records about it. Then we have Persian, Arab, and African travelers. So these travel accounts also mention that Sopara was linked to the hinterland via Thane and Kalyan. There is some link between Bharuch, that is a Bhrugu Kacha, and Sopara as well. So in a way, I would say I guess the storytellers are already gone. But Sopara was a traveler hub way before modern day travelers started using wanderlust. So if they were present today, probably Al Biruni would have posted on Instagram with wanderlust from Sopara. You would have checked in at Sopara. Now Indian accounts. The 8th century Jain text Kuvalaimala mentions a Srishtin from Takshashila had come to Dakshinapatha and had come to Sopara along with his horses for trade. It gives a detailed account of the various breeds of horses that are present and which should be there. It also mentions various clubs, the bankers that are there at Soparia. Historical figures like Vastupal and Tejpal, who were ministers of the Solankis, had also commissioned some temple constructions and had taken various yatras to Sopara. They were also born at Sopara. There are references for it. Now, yatra, if we consider Kashi, so a person who is at Kashi can go to some other place also for a yatra. So there are outward accounts. So in 12th century, a Konkan delegate from Sopara Tejkanta was sent to Kashmir for a literary congress. A bronze votive image from Sojitra in Gujarat mentions the donor who had hailed from Sahuwala, that is Sopara. Shri Sopara Vignaptika, this is a beautiful poem belonging to the 13th, 15th century in Maru Gurjara style. It is a beautiful poem which describes, which is a memoir of a traveler. It describes again Sopara as a Teertha Kshetra and mentions the Jivit Swami Murti. It equates that visit to Sopara is equivalent to visiting 68 Tirthas. It beautifully describes the geography of Sopara, and a lot of plantation are mentioned here. A lot of these fruits and flowers are still being cultivated at Sopara, and we all know that Vasai is one of the hubs for bananas. Various forms of worship like Ras, Bas, singing and dancing are also mentioned. Now, a beautiful take on it would be that in today's time, Jains have certain restrictions on Ras and Bas and dancing, but then this was a form of bhakti back in the 13th, 15th century, and it is mentioned in the Vignaptika. The journey described is both physical as well as transcendental for the yatrik. Another important aspect in this Vignaptika is that the poet describes the deity and the nature with the same affection. There are the various names of Sopara that we find. Archaeological sources. The biggest testament of Mumbai, the historical testament, is in the form of 8th and the 9th Ashokan edict that was found at Sopara. Bhagwanal Indraji during excavation also found 8 metal images of Buddha, and relics and other artifacts were found during the excavation. Apart from this, a lot of pottery and coins have been found at Sopara, and more work is being going on at Sopara. A lot of votive images are found in the vicinity of the Buddha Stupa, which indicate that yatriks would be coming there and donating once their wishes are fulfilled. A lot of kichakas are lying around in the next to the stupa. So does that indicate that some form of temple structure would have been there? So this is the 8th Ashokan edict, which lies with the CSMVS museum. You can see the Buddha stupa at the bottom. These are the kichakas or the bharvahakas as they are known in other regions of India. At the bottom you can see the votive stupa. There are a lot of votive stupas that are found, which indicates the hordes of people who would have been coming there. Remains around the Chakreshwar Talav and the Gas village. A lot of remains are still found, and I'll just go through the picture so you get a better idea of it. The first image is of a peculiar image of Agni riding the ram. Then there is a full-size Brahma image that can be found next to the Chakreshwar Talav. You can see the Gajalakshmi image. There is a Jain Ambika Harihara image, Mahishasura Mardini, Surya image, Uma Maheshwar, Ganesha. I could not include all the images here, but a lot more has been found. Now here we can see, and in the first image, you can see the old temple plinth. Now this is next to the Chakreshwar temple, and this is old temple plinth in the Takipada region, which I'll be showing in the map. And this is the region from where in Takipada where a lot of remains of a Jain temple are also found. The bottom image that you see of a lintel of a Jain temple is found from the same Takipada region, and is my co-author Siddharth Kala, is a great field worker. Now in the last image, I don't know if you are able to see it clearly, but debris are found all across Sopara. recent findings that we have come across, a Surya image made in marble dating to the 15th century has been found, and this image has the reference of Modagnati, as Sundara ma'am had mentioned earlier. 7 bronze Tirthankar images from the 15th and the 16th century have also been found. They are lying with under the custody of Agashi Jain Sangh. A Vishnu image of with Dashavatar depiction supposedly belonging to the 11th-12th century have been found. A Ganesha panel from the medieval period have also been found. The inscriptions on the Surya image and the bronzes indicate the presence of the Jain trading community in the region during the 14th to 16th century, supporting the idea that it was their Teertha Kshetra and the merchants thrived there. So this is the Surya image with the inscription. This is the Dashavatar Vishnu image, which was found roughly a month back, and the Ganesh panel at the bottom. These are the 7 bronzes that were found, which are lying with the Jain Trust. This is the details of the bronzes. Interestingly, ma'am, you would like to know that 2 of the bronzes also mention Modagnati. Now, we look at Sopara as a trade center and a port. So, earlier references that I showed also indicate that Sopara was a trade center. Various myths and legends associated with Sopara refer to maritime trade, and also the protagonists in a lot of myths are involved in some form of trade. Even as I mentioned Kuvalai Mala, it mentions horse trade with much detail. Does it indicate that the community, the Jain community back then, was involved in some kind of horse trade? Sopara is also not far away from Godbandar, and as the name suggests, Godbandar was associated with trading of horses. So was there some link between that? Again, Sopara was linked to Nashik, Paitan, Ter, Nanighat, Kalyan and Thane for the purpose of trade, and donations made by merchants at various caves are testimony to it. One peculiar mention that we came across of trade is that of a kalal by a Jain sadhu. Now, kalals are basically the ones involved in making and trading of alcohol. Now, a Jain sadhu commenting on kalal is something very peculiar. He also mentioned that the people involved in kalal were not looked down upon or banished from the society, but had the right to share their meals with the people in the society. Now, such an acceptance and such a commentary by a Jain monk indicates the richness and the diversity of the thriving culture at Sopara. Now, we look at Sopara from the port perspective. So, as I already mentioned, the Periplus and Ptolemy's account indicate that it would have been port for almost 2000 years. The discovery of caves at Edwan by Dr. Suraj Pandit and Siddharth Kale indicate that probably those were the watchtowers marking the northernmost periphery of Sopara. A stone anchor was found by my co-author last year and from Gas village, and it has a masjid named Bandar Masjid near it. Does it have some relevance with the stone anchor? I'll show in the maps as well. Remains pointing towards the shipbuilding at Bolinj and Agashi have also been found. Sopara, being a thriving port, was also one of the reasons why Portuguese tried to get hold of it. Sopara continued being a prominent port on the west coast till siltation, which was already happening gradually over the centuries, suddenly accelerated due to rapid urbanization during the British and the modern period. Now, this is the map of Sopara. So, this is the Bandar Masjid. Okay. Just show what I said. Can I just show? Okay. Okay. So this is the Bandar Masjid. This is the site from where stone anchor was found. This is the Padmavati temple where a lot of debris from Jain temple are found. This is the temple plains which I showed earlier, and from here the lintel and the other Jain images are found. The Surya image was also found in this region. And down below here, the site of Gas. So this is where a lot of Hindu images are found. An overview of this site from above. Now, as you have seen this area, this is the Sopara Stupa, Buddha Stupa. I'll again show. Now this is the ancient channel. This is the sea. This is the channel right now. And here you have seen the gas side. So probably the scholars have already worked on it. This was the ancient course of the water channel through which the ships would have come in. And since this is the site, probably a port would have existed here. So the ships would have gone from this side till here, and you can see the water body here. So this would have been a port site, and since it was a port site, we can find overlapping data from all the three major religions here. And as I mentioned, the Bandha Masjid near the stone anchor. This is a siltation process depicted by Savita Ghate in her work. Talking to the locals, I'll just quickly complete this. So we have talked to the locals, and a Jain merchant from Sopara mentioned that his family had come 120 years ago, and their family was involved in trading of betel nut leaves. There were other merchants who were already residing there, and as I mentioned in the Vignaptika earlier, the Vignaptika also mentions cultivation of betel nut leaves. Another Brahmin also mentions that the Brahmins had already settled there. Post Portuguese period, a lot of Brahmins were being invited by the Peshwas to teach people, to educate people in their way of life. People also said that till a few decades ago, the coast was used for smuggling, indicating some form of maritime activity till the recent times. Interpretation and discussion, I would not conclude, but I would leave it more open. So, an ancient emporium. The literary references along with the overlapping material from all the three major religions depict the multicolored past of Sopara. The fact that Ashoka sent his Yavana missionary indicate that some form of population was already there. Also, the wide acceptance of Kalal indicate that it was a cosmopolitan society of the day. The way travelers from across the world and all walks of life visited Sopara indicates that it probably wasn't just a cosmopolitan society, but it was an ancient emporium. And the three pillars which made Sopara what it was. So the monks are supposed to live in isolation, but why are all the major caves or religious center along the trade routes? What does one do with all the surplus or the produce that one has? What does one do with all the excess wealth that they have accumulated? So people get curious after they have done enough. Also in the agrarian economy that we have, and till recently the change in the we had rainfall, and it led to the damage of crops. So what would people do in the cases of such calamities? They would obviously turn to religious institutions. So the religious organizations would not have survived without the patronage of the kings or the wealthy communities. Also, if there was no port, how would they export all these goods and generate more wealth? Once you have access, then your subsistence requirements, it makes you more curious and you indulge in something which is more than mundane, be it religious activities or something to satiate your curiosity. It makes you a Teertha Yatrik on a transcendental phase. These are the people to acknowledge. I could not mention Bharat Adhyan Kendra because the slide was made earlier. And thank you for being fellow Yatriks with me on this presentation for the past 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With this, we complete all the papers of the day. This last session was so revealing, so eye-opening. The Tipu's Ford paper was unique in the sense it was the only paper covering the painful experiences of Hindus through the yatra, very terrorizing yatra by a very terrorizing king.